A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar today. And today we're going to talk about how to transform the way you work next with your existing Office 365 tenant. And to educate you on the same, we have speakers with us who is Supratim Biswas and Ajit Mohanraj, who heads the cloud division at New Web Computing. And this session is scheduled to run for 45 minutes, starting with a session from Supratim and Ajit, and then we'll end with a Q&A session. And if you have any issues in the audio or the video, you can raise your hand on the chat panel, or you can still focus using the Q&A panel. And if you have any questions that you want to post to our speakers during the session, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. And again, you can use the Q&A panel to ask your questions. Right. So without wasting a minute, now I would like to invite Supratim to take the session forward. Mr. Supratim, over to you.
Thank you, Kiran, and thanks each one of you for joining in for today's webinar, where we are going to uncover basically what all you can achieve with the help of your Office 365 tenant, which is coming up for renewal. So the next question is what to achieve next, right? I know that many of you, our customers, in fact, you are already on Office 365, and you must be knowing all the features of Office 365 as well. But the situation and the dynamics have changed. Now everybody is forced to work from home, and everybody is using their own personal devices to touch your applications. So mind you, that opens up a lot of threat vectors for you, right? And we understand that all of you must be having your own requirements, which will be driven by your own use cases as well. But I can rest assure you that there is a security layer behind and underneath all your productivity applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or email. So the answer to the question that what next is nothing but to have a secure, proactive enterprise for you. Now, if you go back a little bit in time, previously it was your perimeter. So inside your perimeter, all the applications were running, all the users were working from your perimeter, and the devices were inside it, right? So what happened is that with mobile devices coming in, your users have started moving out, right? And once they are moving out, they are out of your site, but still they have to touch base your applications as well, right? So the identity becomes a very important pivot at this point of time. And also you would be interested to know that which are the devices that they are working from, like the devices might be registered or is not registered, right? If it's registered, you would probably want to know that whether it's patched properly or not, or if it's unregistered in nature, you must be interested to know that if you can set up a dual persona in their mobile phone, so that you can segregate what's corporate and what's personal data lying in those endpoints, right? Now, the third element is specifically when your users are interacting with digital lead states which are outside your organization. Say, for example, your customers or your partners or vendors. So what happens is that knowingly or unknowingly, they might be sharing any business critical information which is very sensitive for you. So as an IT, you have the onus to secure the data which is at rest as well as which is in transit. Now, the fourth element again talks about the users who are using sanctioned applications or unsanctioned applications, because a recent Gartner report says that on an average, there will be 18 other SaaS applications which your users might be using, which the IT doesn't know about it, right? So you would be interested to know that what are the applications that they are downloading in their endpoints, whether it's malicious in nature or not, right? So once you have your four circles, as an IT, you have your duty to have this secured. All the four circles should be secured, right? So why am I being able to say this with such high level of confidence? Because we take security in a different way, right? Say, for example, your users might be having a proof to prove that he is who he claims to be. So that's the way you can change how you firewall your organization. So identity becomes your new firewall. And then if you can patch your devices to a very high level of confidence, like all the applications that they are downloading their point are safe, or your devices are properly patched on time, so devices can become a new parameter. And then if you can change a transition from an prevent breach model to an assume breach model, right, then only you will be able to understand that at a post breach scenario, where to go and do all the forensics about what happened and which are the endpoints that got affected in nature, so that you can quickly detect, investigate, and respond to all the threats happening in your environment. Now, why am I saying that you should secure all the four circles? Because of these alarming statistics. You must have heard about the advanced persistent threats, or any attacker who is sleeping in your organization without even your notice, right? Because this statistic says it takes 146 days of an average to detect if an attacker is sitting inside your perimeter. Now I want to ask you all a very critical and important question: that how certain are you that there is not an active sleeper sitting in your network, right? Now, second, you must be having your different applications running in your environment. Now, your users might have a burden of, different credentials to remember, right? So how sure are you whether your users are not saving it up in your endpoints or writing it in diaries? Because the statistics says that more than 63% of network institutions happens because of compromised user credentials. So have you implemented a single sign-on or multi-factor authentications or conditional access policies for all your business critical applications? Now, third, of course, I want, any for to any data breach which happens in your organization, I want you to imagine about your organization, about your applications, what happens. Because when we were interacting with a pharmaceutical company who were into research of medicines, right, we got to know that, for any particular patent, if they lose it, it used to cost them crores, not even lakhs, because a patent usually takes 7 years to get it registered with the government. So, right. So what is the data breach? What is the cost of the data breach in your organization today? Now, that brings me to a very important quote from John Chambers, who says that, there are basically two types of companies who have been hacked, of course, and those who does not even know that they have been hacked yet. So, you might be asking me that, how to secure all this. So the answer: to have a secure, proactive enterprise, you have to have built a security across all the four pillars. Say, for example, you want to protect your organization data and people, or you want to create a more proactive workplace for your users as well. Like many of you must be using Teams, but others who are not using Teams, in my coming slide, I am going to tell you that how to set it up for you. And then you want to give a mobility experience for all your users so that they can start working from anywhere, from any devices, right? Now the fourth piece is, for your digital workers who basically do all the data crunching and all to get to any better decision making. So you need to have something which will provide insights to have a better decisions, right? So you need to have that intelligence, right? So you must be wondering about, do you need all this or not? If you are able to answer me on all the critical questions which are cited above in the slide, I guess you are very safe in nature. But if you are not, then you are at the right place, and we are going to tell you that how you can do it. Say, for example, who is accessing your data? What is their role? Is there any role-based access given in your organization? What is the user based out of for? Is he using any IP which is malicious in nature? Is he using any Tor based IP address? What is the application which they are accessing? What is the business impact if that application is hacked? Or what is the devices? What is the health of the device that they are working from? Or do you have to protect all the corporate files on your mobile devices, right? So these are the typical questions that I need you to have a vision about it. So let me present before you the top 10 use cases which we have figured out when we were working with our customers. Starting with, to have a single sign-on to all my on-premises as well as cloud applications. So we had one customer where they had 10 odd applications running in their environment. Now the challenge here was, for all the 10 applications, they had 10 different credentials for their users to remember, and keeping aside their personal credentials as well. So what the users were doing is that they were saving all those passwords and writing it up in diaries, or writing it up in Word files and saving it up in locally on their endpoint. So what happens is that, what if that device gets lost, right? So main challenge was that, and all the critical credential information gets into the hands of the somebody who is malicious. So what happened is that we introduced the customer to the concept of single sign-on that you can achieve with the help of Azure Active Directory. Now the customer has for a one credential for all the 10 different applications. Now, my second use case again for one of our customer who wanted to control all their endpoints. Now, what happened is that they were operating out from 10 different locations. They had their sales employees where they used to collect all the critical information from his sellers, because I'm talking about an e-commerce background company, right? So when they collect all the critical information from sellers, starting from their inventory, starting from their payment terms and all those, but they were against saving that in the form of notes or some, but that was not secured in nature. Now what we introduced the customer to the concept of Microsoft Intune, which is the mobile device management as well as mobile application management. So what we have done, we have we did a pilot on Intune, and then we have integrated the SharePoint with Microsoft Intune. So now what's happening, all the salespeople, they have their Microsoft forms, they collect all the details, and once they save it, it gets integrated with your SharePoint, right? And nobody will be able to download that critical information again. So in a way, my customer was able to secure all the endpoints. Now the third is to enhance your email security, because this is very important as email remains the most prolific vector even today. So when we were interacting with one of our customer, we understood that suddenly from a CFO mailbox, a mail had been triggered to the finance department stating that 100K US dollar you have to transfer it to one account. Since the amount was very big, the finance head went and spoke to the CFO, right? That what is this amount was all about. So to their to their surprise, they got to know that there was no such mail triggered. It was a phishing attack which happened. So we did a quick POC on Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection, which helps you to get protected against any sort of zero-day attack or phishing emails or any kind of spoofing mails with the help of safe links and safe attachments policies. Now, the fourth is to set up a real-time collaboration platform. Now, this is my personal favorite, right? Because it talks about Microsoft Teams. So this was again for one of our customers. So what happened is that it was a hospitality industry, and all the doctors were collaborating one Friday, right? And they used to discuss all the critical cases that they had, and they want to brainstorm and come out with the best possible solution for their patients. The only challenge was that they were not able to share any critical information like the reports and all, and so that everybody can brainstorm. So we gave a demo on Microsoft Teams in there, right? And now they are able to do all the cool stuffs that they wanted to do, right? So most of you are already using Teams, which is what I'm presuming, but if not, I'm going to tell you in my upcoming slides that why Team is so useful and so cool. So typically when I start my day, I click onto my activity at mentions. When I click on this, everybody who has pronounced my name or taken my name and wanted suggestions, it will pop up. So once I click it in there, I get to know who has called out my name so that I can quickly address them. Now there might be 100 of people who might be calling out my name. So there is again a very beautiful feature which will help me to pin all the important people in my organization. Say for example, I want to address my managing director, I want to address my director or my own manager at first, right? So that I can prioritize and have the discussions going on. Coming to Teams, which is where the exact magic of collaboration happens, because it talks about that how you can create teams in your organization, and inside Teams you can create up channels. So what happens is that when I'm speaking about it, I want you to imagine your own organization, the own teams that you have, like HR, like sales or operations, right? So that's the teams that you can set up. Now inside Teams, what you can do is that you can create various channels so that you can have a discussion about different topics and get going with all the threads that the channels will help you to do. So like I said, Teams allows you to share documents, co-author it at the same point of time, right? Open up the document and you all can start working simultaneously. Now this is again a very cool feature, because if you are an MNC company, you must be having people joining in from other parts of the globe, right? And they are very comfortable talking in their own language. So in the screen that you can see, somebody have written in a German language, right? So which we don't understand. What I can do is that I can quickly translate it with the click of a button to English. So how it's like how useful, right, for all of us. Now when you are having a meeting with your internal stakeholders as well, right, and you want to have your external stakeholders joining in your teams as well, right. Now the best part, even you can include your external stakeholders here, but it will be shown as a guest to you. So any critical or internal information that you wanted to have a discussion on, you'll be seeing that there is a guest here in the channel. So you can choose not to have that discussion there, right. Now Teams also gives you a very rich feature, unlike your WhatsApp, right? Because it comes with all the cool features, like you can do bold, you can do italics, or you can underline all the cool paragraphs and all. Now, like I said, you can share documents, right? I want to spend a little bit more time here, because once you want, interested to share with one person or one colleague, it is being shared from OneDrive. Or if you want to share a document with your team, then at the back end, it's being shared from SharePoint. Now, all the security policies that you have set up for your Office 365 environment, it's automatically is integrated when you share your documents over Teams. So you are safe that your documents, whichever users are sharing, it's safe. Now here in the screen, you can say that I can also quickly integrate my applications. So here I have integrated my Power BI applications. So I can do all the intelligence and all the real-time analytics from one platform itself. So I did not hop around to another platforms. So I can see that I have also integrated my planner here, so that whichever task that I need to complete, I can complete it right here, right now. Now Teams also integrates with your Outlook calendar. So you need not go to your email and then understand what is the calendar and then come here. No, you just open up the meetings platform, you get to see all the calendars. And the cool feature again, you can join in right here, right now. Now, when you are about to join in a Teams, it comes with a very rich preview, capabilities and features as well. So before joining the webinar or any other meetings, you can get to see that whether your camera is working, whether your microphone is working or not, and how are you looking basically. Now Teams also allows you to have a rich share experience. You can share your screen, or you can share any particular page as well with your team members. Now Teams also allows you to record the meetings as well, right? If you are not able to attend any meeting, so what you can do is that you can quickly record it. So once you get time, you start hear the recording and get going with it. Now Teams also have a rich background blur option. So specifically during this time, we have seen when we interact with our customer, the kids toil around in the background, right? If you don't want that to happen, you can use this feature of a rich blur option. Now, like I said, once you record it, but you don't have time to spend your 3 hours or 4 hours listening to the whole of the recording. So what you can do is that you can use the transcript service of Microsoft Teams. So what you do, you just type in your name, it will exactly take you to that position where somebody has called out your name, and quickly you can get to know that what was the discussion going on around it, so that you can quickly address those queries. So Teams also allows you to have a rich calling experience from the same platform, but the only challenge here is that due to TRAI regulations in India, you will not be able to use this feature. But to your savior, there is one company called TCL who can, once you integrate with them, they will be able to help you out with this feature in India. So like I said, that's why I'm saying that Microsoft Teams has all the features and all the capabilities for it to become a hub for your teamwork, right? So with this features like chats, meetings, file share, and application integration and all those cool stuff, you can get going with Microsoft Teams very easy. Now coming to my fifth use case was for one of our customer who wanted to automate the whole of joiner, mover and lever process for their employees. So the challenge here was that they were facing 3 days of productivity loss, especially when a new joinee came in, because the HR had to go into multiple application, feed in all the information. Right. So what we have done is that we have introduced Azure Active Directory Premium again to the customer. So they have their central HRMS application. Once they feed all the information over there, now quickly the Azure Active Directory extracts all the information provisions that for the other SaaS-based applications which are running in your organization. So imagine the 3 day of productivity loss got reduced to half a day for them. So you probably want to secure employees access from anywhere, right? Which is the most important thing right now. So there was one customer who wanted to go ahead with that as well. And today we are all forced to work from home, so we have to think over those areas. So he wanted to have an conditions for their users to be set up so that why he can have control. Say for example, on the screen you can see, with the help of Azure Active Directory conditional access, you can set up your users, which profile they belong from, which are the devices that they should be joining in, or which are the location that they should be working from, or what are the critical applications that they should be touching, right? So based on all these conditions, if somebody is fulfilling that, then you can have the control whether you want to go ahead and allow access, or you want to push an multi-factor authentications to his mobile phone so that a dual layer of authentication happens again, or you don't want to give them access at all, right? So you can have those controls at your hand. Now, second, again, we introduce Windows 10 as well. I don't know, many of us might be knowing it or not, but Windows 10 comes with a virtualized based security model. So what happens is that it gives you a virtualized platform where it's a very secured in nature, where users, once they open up websites, different websites, right, it opens up in a secured platform again, or it also helps you to save all the credentials with the help of credential guard, which typically saves you from all the past the hash attack kind of malicious attacks. Now all these cool features not only happens for your on-premises applications, but it also happens for your web applications as well. Now, seven is there was one customer who wanted an alert if any secondary device is used for access to an application. Now, a customer was a CIO over there, and he wanted to have this feature. And his PA also had an access to his credentials. So we introduced him to the concept of real-time identity protection as well as Azure Active Directory Premium to them. So what happened is that with the help of these two technologies, we have enabled policies. So now everybody, whenever anybody is trying to log in, and multi-factor authentication is pushed to his mobile phone to verify, to have a dual layer of authentication again. Now all of us working for revenue for our own companies, and we all have our sales, our marketings, right? Marketing people, so they must be carrying millions of worth of proposals in their endpoints. So what happens if somebody wants to use that in a bad way? So we introduce our customer with the help of Azure Information Protection. So with this, what you will be able to do is that you can classify your document based on the content and context, and then you can go ahead and label all those documents, like you want to label it up as strictly confidential, or you want to label it up as confidential. So once you do that, nobody in your organization will be able to cut, copy, paste on the basis of the label that you have set up. So in a way, you are protecting your data, right? So even you can share those documents. So what happens is that all the rights that I just spoke of, these rights are attached to the metadata of the document. So wherever the data is flowing, the rights flows along with that. So in a way, you can monitor where and all your data is flowing, and you can revoke your access as well in case you have face any uncontingency situation, right? So that's the way you respond to that. Now, again, with the help of Azure Information Protection and Windows Information Protection for one of our customer, which were into banking industry, and in banking industry, we know how tough the regulations are, right? And there was RBI who came up with a regulation that your customers' data should be very secured in nature. So with the help of these two features, we were able to give that flexibility to the customer, where they were able to segregate what's corporate and what's personal data lying in their endpoints, and they were able to exactly protect the data at rest or on transit as well. Now, a 10th use case is even more interesting, which talks about how to have a protection against advanced persistent threats. So when we interact with many of our customer, almost this use case we have deployed it with many of our customers, because they say that either they don't know that there was a sleeper lying, sitting in their premises for 120 days, right? Or they didn't had any mechanism. Now against it, what is the solution is that we introduced them to Microsoft advanced threat analytics, which does a behavioral analytics into place, and it checks the behavior pattern. So any change in the behavior of your users, it quickly comes as an alert to the IT, and so that at a post breach scenario you can quickly detect, investigate, and respond to those advanced persistent attacks of yours. Now, these were the top 10 use cases that we have figured out across our customers. I'm sure that you must be having your own use cases, and we will be happy to listen to that, and we'll be happy to, solution that for you. So I would like to hand over to Mr. Ajit to present the tools that will make this magic happen for you.
Hey, thank you, Supratim, and good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible, Kiran?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Thank you. So I think what Supratim has just laid out is, a lot of you all are currently on your productivity tools like your O365 that you currently use. But I think if you look at everything that he's just spoken about, and the top 5 are the pretty low-hanging fruit that new organizations go for. And of course, in the next wave, people take the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a whole lot of security. I don't know whether you've noticed, but it's a lot of security pieces that are now coming across from Microsoft. And the intent, like Supratim talked about, was to be able to not just be productive and collaborative, but actually be secure at the same time. So really, in a sense, even for you all, when you're coming up for your renewal sometime this quarter, you're going to be looking at wrapping security around what you have, right? And I will talk about a little bit later about why this and how this ties up into a lot of the new stories of zero trust network access and intent based networking and security. Why, how come all these elements come together? So let me just introduce you. So the to the tool sets that made all of those magic happen for those 10 use cases. And really, it's not too much. There are just 6 tools, right, outside the O365 piece that a lot of you all are already subscribed for, right? And I say choose your entry point with Microsoft because depending on where you are, and going back to Supratim's first slide where he talked about, we understand each of you all are on a slightly different journey. So each of you all might have your own use cases from where you want to start. And we perfectly understand that. So, as a subsequent follow-up, what we used to do in person, of course, we now do it virtual, is we help you define your use cases first, and then layer on the tooling, and then layer on the planning of the best, sort of business plans that can work for you. So the first element in this whole picture is, or the first tool set is Windows 10, right? And as simple as that sound, I don't know, the biggest thing for me and for the team is that when we realized that Windows 10, the enterprise edition, is actually a virtualization based security, which means I don't know how many of you all know that under Windows 10, under the hood is actually Hyper-V. It's a set of VMs that are running underneath your Windows 10 Enterprise. For example, your core kernel and all those modules are very, very separate. They have a proxy kernel that is running in a separate VM. Supratim talked about Credential Guard, where a lot of your username and passwords are actually maintained in a separate VM. There's a very, very clear isolation from a Hyper-V level going on underneath your Windows 10 Enterprise. I'm sure a lot of you all didn't know that. It was news to us when Windows 10 was launched. And it's not just a regular another Windows 8.1 to 10 upgrade. This was a huge, huge upgrade with a lot of security features that were long pending, I would say, from Windows 7. They finally got a lot of those puzzles, right. So there are 2 plans over there. We'll have a look at them in terms of what Windows 10 E3 is or E5. And the start point over there is for customers who have a large end user population running. We still see customers with Windows 7, Windows 8, and they want to get and standardize the endpoint device on a secure platform. So please understand that all of these elements that we're going to speak about is to make your collaborative piece very secure. And we are saying start from the endpoint device. Make sure that that operating system is truly, truly secure. You have a choice of Windows 10 E3 and E5, and we'll have a quick look at later on what differentiates that. So that's the first tool set in the arsenal, or into your workbench, so to speak, which you have, right? The second one is actually just a bundling. It's called the Enterprise Mobility and Security, and primarily comprises of 4, I would say rather 4 or 5, distinct tools. And just that these tools are put together under something called EMS. But the first tool, which Supratim also talked about, was Azure AD Premium. All that single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, being able to tell you that there's a sign in from two different locations, which are two different geographical locations, which is difficult to travel within 5 minutes. For example, I get a login from Bangalore, I get a login from Singapore 5 minutes later, impossible. Something's going wrong. Probably credentials are sort of hacked. So all of that good stuff, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, conditional access, risk-based, all that good stuff on the identity piece of the puzzle is what is there in Azure AD Premium, and that's what you see as number one there. The second piece is that, again, goes back to saying that I don't trust my devices until I manage them. Then if I can't manage the device because it's not my device, I at least needs to manage the application and the data that is residing on the device, right? So we do have Microsoft Intune, which makes up that number two, the managed mobile productivity piece that you may want to bring in. The third one, of course, is referring to what Supratim spoke about, that your users are now basically sharing a lot of content with everybody, right? Inside and outside the organization. The question is, as you as IT are a little scared about, are they going to be actually sending out some stuff that is fairly confidential? Not that they are doing it intentionally, it could be very accidental, but the user did not know. So the best way, how do I classify those data and make sure that they are business labeled with, confidential, highly confidential, public, if it is a public document. And if he doesn't know while he's typing out that document or he's trying to send it, I need to be in a position where I actually stop that propagation of it, right? So that all that good stuff is under something called the Microsoft Azure Information Protection, which is point number 3 there in that suite, right? And the fourth one is all about the behavior, right? Both on premise, that is how is your users behaving on a daily basis. So you have Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics that he spoke about in one of the use cases, where I watch basically the behavior of users, what devices they come in with on a daily basis, what do they actually do on a daily basis, which are the applications, and their information flows on a daily basis. And moment there's a deviation in one of those things, then I'm going to raise an alert, right? Similarly, so that comes with Microsoft ATA, right? And Microsoft CASB, which is the Cloud Access Security Broker, which is the other component that made up number 4, is watching all of this as kind of similar behavior, but how are they behaving on the cloud? Right. So if you remember, Supratim talked about that last circle, which talked about behavior of your users when they download SaaS applications or when they are uploading their data to OneDrive or to Google Drive. Is documents lying there that it shouldn't be lying there? All that good stuff is what the CASB piece from Microsoft picks up, right? So again, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Actually, I just put that as 4 as the last block, but 5 plus 1 is 6. Windows 10 is a 6 piece. This is it. With this 6 tools, all those typical 10 use cases, there are more, but these are what we've seen as typical with our organizations, is something that you can deploy in your organization, right? And so the last part on the puzzle to the right hand side is really just a packaging, right? It's not a new product of any kind. So you have the Microsoft 365 for business. Let me just put my laser pointer on. So this is for organizations which are less than 300 users. They can adopt this. And this is for organizations which are more than 300 users, obviously, and they have different flavors of the plan. What is Microsoft 365? For a lot of y'all who may be knowing it, you have this piece of the puzzle, but what they've done is they've just bundled the Windows 10 that we saw over here, the EMS that we saw over here, and put it together in a E3 and an E5 plan point of view. So obviously, when you buy this together as a bundle piece, it's going to be much better. So essentially what we're going to look for, 1 and 2 are the tool sets and a little bit of depth, right? And B is the bundling, right? So I'm going to talk about and expose the bundling to you as well. So if I look at Windows 10, very briefly, if you look at the spread over here, I would say that all these elements of security that you see, and I'm not going to go through them because this is a very limited webinar, but all these elements deal with the pre-breach scenario of any attack, right? So in terms of your credential guard will be held very closely. App locker, basically, I can decide whether I want to run those applications, do not want to run those applications. Device guard, a boot guard, for example, I do not want a malware sitting in my BIOS, right? Because when the Windows system comes up and let's say you guys have an antivirus that starts running, it's too late because the malware is already sitting in the BIOS. So UEFI support and all of that good thing is what Windows 10 has all about, right? So this is basically what the E3 piece of the plan gives you. Brings in your regular Windows, as we know, but with a lot of these additional security elements, right? So that's the plan E3. And what do we add on E5 is everything in E3 plus what we term as advanced threat detection, or I will term it as a post-breach scenario. So moment something else happens, I want to know where all the person went, what all the vectors did he touch, and I want to be able to do some forensics on the endpoint, right? So Windows 10 Enterprise E5 is nothing but E3 with the advanced threat protection, right? To give you a sense of pricing, again, remember, we are trying to go from, we're coming up for a renewal. I'm keeping that in the back of the mind. We want to wrap security around this. And some of you all might want to start at the endpoints. Well, this is where we'd spend a lot of time with you, right? In fact, go and demo and show you a lot of these features. And that's the costing over here. E3 is $12 per user per month, and E5 is $18 per user per month. The most loveliest part of this, and a lot of people don't know this, is that moment you have Windows 10 E3 or E5, you are entitled to run Windows virtual desktops in Azure. I'm sure a lot of you all don't know that, right? So what is going to be managed by Microsoft is all those, gateways and brokers and all that usual stuff that you have to look after. The entire orchestration piece of the VDI piece is what Microsoft will look after. You will actually run, the VMs in Azure. So for example, a lot of people may not know that Windows Virtual Desktop has another version of Windows 10, which is called Windows Enterprise Multi-Session. And what is multi-session? Again, only available in Azure Cloud, only available in Windows Virtual Desktop. It basically means that, let's say if I had 12 people to whom I wanted to give them virtual desktops to access because of the pandemic situation, I can't trust their end device at home. So I want them to log on to the Windows virtual desktops that we set up in Azure. Now, if you didn't have this feature, Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session, and it's only available in Azure, you would have to spin up probably, let's assume classic VDI, you would have to spin up about 12 VMs for them. And therefore, you would be paying for 12 VMs that you'll be burning in Azure. But with Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session, I can have more than one session parallelly going on or simultaneously connected to one single Windows 10 virtual machine. So in our example, if we had 12 people, and let's say they were all normal, very light workers, right? I might say 4 of them to one VM. So 12 of them, all I need to require is stand up 3 VMs in Azure, and I will only pay for the burn of 3 vis-a-vis the burn of 12, right? That's literally 75% reduction in the cost of running my VMs there. So what I want to again reiterate to you is that if you buy the Windows 10 Enterprise E3 or E5, right, you straight away are allowed, you're licensed to, it's already paid for to run Windows virtual desktops in Azure. The only thing that you will have to pay for separately is the VM burn that you are burning, depending on the size of the VM, etc. And they've got some fantastic VMs there. As you know, Azure has got a whole series of VMs, including GPU-enabled VMs for customers who have GPU kind of workloads, right? Not only is Windows 10, E3, and E5 qualifying, but the Microsoft 365, E3, E5, and the Microsoft 360 business plans, any of these SKUs, if you have with you already, guess what? You've already paid for the Windows 10 virtual desktop orchestration piece, right? If I then go to the second piece of the puzzle, which is all about enterprise mobility and security, and so that will be for certain customers, they're very good. They're all sorted out on the endpoint. They've already done this, right? But they're now wanting to wrap a lot of single sign-on and multi-factor authentication and all that good stuff. You may then want to explore EMS when you're coming up for your renewals, because you now want to tighten things up, right? You will hear buzzwords like zero trust security network to be built up now, intent-based security, and all of these elements are going to play with it, play into that game, right? And I'll talk about that later. So if I look at EMS, right, again, quick introduction to you. EMS comprises of the identity and the access management piece. So this is Azure Active Directory in the cloud. It will sync with your on-premise Active Directory. So not only would you have on-premise applications that can be authenticated and all that good stuff, you don't have to set up ADFS on-premise because all the SAML and OAuth kind of authentication for cloud-based applications will be handled by Azure AD. All those other things in terms of single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, Microsoft has something called Azure Identity Detection, which comes part of Azure AD story, which looks at all those risk-based identity sign-ins and things like that, right? So those are the different plans. There's a plan P1 and a plan P2. Second, of course, as I will come here, Microsoft Intune. All about the mobile device and the mobile access management, right? Whether it's your devices, your employee devices, or third-party contract devices, I need to now control that, right? Because I don't trust it. If I mean, the whole thing about zero trust, and keep this in the back of your mind, I'm sure your security guys may be talking to you about it, but zero trust basically means you are considered malicious until proven otherwise. If you remember, Supratim talked about assume breach model, right? So people are now saying earlier on, we used to have a certain level of entitlement and, I would say access levels for people who were inside the perimeter of the network, and we had a very different set of access controls and authentication, etc., for people who are outside the network. But now, moment with all this advanced persistent threat that you talked about, where people are able to come in, assume your credentials, and behave like you, this whole game is now changing. People are saying, why should we give internal people more trust and outside people less? No, we don't want to do that. I'm basically saying that I'm assuming zero. I don't trust anybody, right? Until you prove otherwise. So when I say I don't trust anybody, I'm not going to, who are the tenants that are involved in these zero trust networks? One is the device. You prove whether you should be allowed in or not. That's the first part. Number two is the user. Who are you? Whether you're in or out, I don't care. You make sure that you authenticate yourself to me because I don't trust you, right? Number three, that piece of data that is running on the network. I'm not sure whether there is some sort of a malware that's running there. I need to know that, right? So until I know that, I'm not going to trust it. Number four, I've got to also believe that the network, I don't trust the network, right? So things like network admission control, am I allowed to come into this part of the network? Not allowed part of the network. I have to prove myself that I'm part of my device has to be allowed to come into that part of the network. So things like NAC, etc., are part of that puzzle. And of course, the applications. Now, the end user side of the house is nice. Okay, we have a single sign-on, we have multi-factor authentication. I know whether the device is good, and I'm able to watch the behavior of this fellow on my all that's good on the end, on I would say the end user side, right? But people are also moving now towards how do I know whether the application is compromised or not, right? So the application also has to give me a trust-based score, right? In fact, Microsoft is working on this element, the application coming up to trust itself and to demonstrate that it is a trustworthy application. But I'm just trying to say that this is the way people are going, especially now because of all these attacks that are coming simply because of the situation that we are in. So if you're going to be looking at building some part of a zero trust network in your organization, believe me, strong authentication, like Supratim spoke about, you don't have strong identity, 63% of break-ins are because of that. So who you are, who your device is, right? What are you doing? Who's given you the permission? And how are you behaving on my network are things that I'm going to watch and I'm going to catch, right? In case we are gone. So the Intune is a very important part of that puzzle, right? The whole behavior piece of the puzzle is the third element here, which is the Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics and the Microsoft Cloud App Security. And the fourth, of course, is the data. I want to make sure that only the right data is moving around. All their controls are going to be there. So this is what EMS is all about. Remember, each of these elements can be bought separately. Again, like I said, your use cases may be different. So you might, for example, just want to have this piece of the puzzle simply because of the situation on right now. I just need to ensure I don't know who is coming onto my network. I want to be able to control that device. I want to control their access. I'm not too interested in the behavior piece. I'm not interested in the data leakage. Great. So that will be your use case. And you can actually pick up each of these products separately, but you'll see later, makes a lot of sense if you pick them up as a bundle, right? So that's EMS, E3, and E5. So remember the, the circles that he spoke about? That's really what EMS actually does. Really brings that whole wraparound of security around your productivity O365, which you're anyway running, but make sure that it ticks off each of those elliptical circle areas that he spoke about, be it identity, your device management, information, and your threat and behavior, right? So coming to the pricing, like I said, just to give you an idea, again, these elements, you have a plan 1 and a plan 2. But just for example, if you take the plan 1, which is let's say $6 per month, and you take an Intune, because maybe that's your start point, good identity and good device management, you're going to pay $12. But guess what? The entire suite is really coming out to $875 a month. So they've kind of priced it very aggressively. It makes no, I mean, it's a very straight decision. I'd rather go for this, even though I'm only doing the plan 1s of this. And obviously, if you go for the higher SKUs, which is the plan 2 from Azure Active Directory, as well as the plan 2 from the AIP piece, which is all that automatic classification of documents, the whole DLP, very advanced version of the DLP piece. If I add up all of that, it comes to close to $32, right? And you're actually getting that at $15 per user per month, right? So these are the other 5 tools that are available to swing this, right? So that's what I just spoke about, the E3 and the E5 plan. And putting it all together with the O365 piece that you have, so that's a good climb up. If somebody says, hey, I am really interested in all of these use cases, do you have something that can bunch it to me and really make it more aggressive? Please include my current O365 plan in as well. Answer is yes. If you're a smaller organization, less than 300 users, they've made it much more simpler for you. That's the Microsoft 365 business plan, of course, and for the larger organizations, beyond 300, it's the E3 and the E5 plan. So very quickly, The 365 business covers all of these good points: the secure identity, devices, apps, email, and documents. And if you look at it, starting from a very simple plan of 125 users, 125 rupees per user per month, what you do get is access to Office Online. So obviously it's not rich. You cannot download it to your desktop, but I get it online and I get a 50 GB email box. I get OneDrive, 1 TB. I get SharePoint access and this big boy here, which is Teams, which is now becoming the lifeline of all organizations, right? That's what you get for 125 rupees per user per month, right? Moment you go into the business standard one, moving from the basic to the standard, what's getting added on is the rich Office experience across your 5 devices. So which means that you can download, I would say Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. on devices of your choice. And along with that, essentially carries on with these services, which we don't change. The only change really is having a rich Office experience. But this is the golden suite, right? 1,320 rupees per user per month. Microsoft 365 Business Premium. What do you get? You get the great rich Office, you get all of these services, and you get the mobile device management, you get the data leakage prevention piece that's put in over here, right? And for those of you all who just want to start with Office and 1 TB of OneDrive, nothing else, right? This is what is good. You can take this. A lot of people who are on G Suite, for example, come and opt for this because they know that Google Docs doesn't really work for the team. They're very comfortable with this, right? So you can also look at this model. So difference between the E3, that's the enterprise plans. Now that's what we're going to next. E3 and E5, I would just call your attention to this piece. A lot of the add-ons here in E3, which is nothing but your advanced threat protection, your end user analytics, your cloud PSTN capabilities, all of that stuff, which is not there in E3, actually comes into E5. And along with E5, you also get your Windows 10 E5 plan, which is, remember, I talked about the post-breach piece, and your EMS completely the classic E5 plan as well. So in fact, this is the golden SKU from an E5 perspective. So from your Office 365, if you want to jump up to both Windows 10 and EMS, you can do an E3 or an E5 and get all of that sandwiches together. Or no, I'm okay with O365. Just give me some part of EMS. I just want 1 or 2 elements of EMS. Take those SKUs separately. Or can I have EMS and Office 365? I don't care about Windows 10. Well, it's all a commercial bundle after that, right? So the pricing for the E365 plans is $26 for the E3 M365 and $48 for the E5. Pretty straightforward there. So when Supratim talked about working your renewals next, into building your security productive enterprise, again, depending on your use cases, right? These are the elements that are going to do it for you, right? The EMS piece that's going to come in. A lot of y'all are not even on Office 365. Some of y'all are on an Exchange, plan one, which is basically just mail. So even look at Office, because you guys would be looking for Teams as a way of collaborating. And for those who have Office 365, whether it's the the business edition or the enterprise edition, start wrapping security around this, right? Because this is what is everybody's going towards slowly. The zero trust business, which basically means I consider you malicious until you prove otherwise, right? So from a perspective of the EMS side, we ensure that we tell you who we are, right? I'm basically making sure that a device is allowed, not allowed, depending on its posture. And depending on these two, I will decide whether you need to access or not to access, right? In terms of services, like I said, this is in the roadmap where applications also will demonstrate a trust score so that the end users can basically access them. But these three pieces of the puzzle is what EMS and Windows 10 is going to bring in. And therefore, your CISO crowd and your whole security team is going to be able to tick off a lot of things on their zero trust access, right? So that's what that really brings. You can adopt this at your own pace, like we said. Take just Windows 10 or take Windows 10 and the entire EMS piece. Or if you want both of these, just jam it into the bundle part that you have there, right? And for those, this is just a quick, quick splash out in terms of what is there on Office 365. It's a very noisy chart, but essentially starts with email and all that good stuff along this line is available. Again, for people who are just on Exchange Online Plan 1, I'm saying you might want to get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, even the online version going for yourselves. You may want to get Teams, right? Because of today's scenario, everybody wants to collaborate well on Teams. If some of you are wanting to do a lot of insights and get a lot of insights from your data, you might want to move to Power BI. A lot of people are doing a lot of online training and enablements during this time. So they're running video channels in Teams, which Supratim spoke about. And I can actually have video channels for different departments, upload my videos and upload all my team recordings as well there. So people don't miss out. So that's O365 for you. EMS, like I spoke about. If this is the only problem in life you have in terms of single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, just pick up the AD premium piece. Or if Intune managing devices is the problem, you can just pick up that if you want, right? Or if it's like I talked about, this whole information leakage piece of it, pick up the Azure information protection. Or if you're also worried about this advanced persistent threat attacks and want to monitor behavior, you can only pick up that if you want. Obviously, when you pick the 4 of them up, that's your EMS, and you're ensuring secure collaboration there. And people who are on O3 or Office right now, where do I go to next? Well, you can go to just the bundled offer straight away. If it's E3, then go to M365 E3, because not only will you get Office, but EMS and Windows 10 E3, similarly for E5 and so on and so forth, right? I think that's pretty evident there. And the last point I want to make to you is that when you're doing your renewals, right, you don't have to buy everything at the top end SKU. For example, you could decide that I want, let's say I'm just giving an example. You can take the $15 SKU for your senior management, could be about 100 people, or let's say 10 people, right? That's at $15 queue. Then for the remaining 100, which is mid management, and the mid management is 100 guys, right? You might just take the $10 queue. And for the larger population of about 1,000 end users, we might just take the $5 queue. So, between the 5 and the 10 and the $15, we can look at each of your use cases. What do you want to protect there? And like I said, combination of many things can be done. It's not suddenly saying that I have 300 users of O365 E3. Let me go to M365 E3. That'll be very foolish to do, because not everybody requires that functionality. So we can pick and choose, make a basket offering. Some could be a bundle, some could be only 1 or 2 SKUs. But at the end of the day, your SKU 1 and SKU 2 plus SKU $3 is going to be far lesser than doing everything on SKU 1, right? So that's what I wanted to leave with you. And as part of this, and in fact, in the feedback form, you can please let us know, for all our renewal customers who are now having to think about zero security and all of that stuff, where do I start, right? Can you come and tell me on my environment at least what I need? So we are running a security threat workshop. Again, it's a Microsoft driven security threat workshop, not our own, right? It's a very standard deliverable set that we have and tools. No cost from your side. What we're going to try and find out for you very quickly is threats on your email, your existing identity, and your data, the data threats that are there, right? And essentially, it's a very quick workshop. It's a quick pre-engagement call of about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. We'll launch you and tell you what we're going to do. Next, we have our technical team that downloads the threat check license from Microsoft. It runs for a week in your environment. We get the reports back. We don't get it. Your administrator gets it, right? You can redact that report and just show it to us, because it will tell you where all and what all things have been happening. And then we come back and do a quick workshop, could be about an hour with you, and replay some of those reports and make recommendations on which of these SKUs that I just spoke about is something that you need to take immediately, right? And we leave that with you, right? So that when your renewal comes up, you might then be able to quickly make a more informed decision. So that's really what we had today, both Supratim and I. A little bit about our company is that best way to understand it is that we offer product, solution, and services in 3 areas, right? The edge, the core, and the cloud. For us, the edge is everything to do with the end user side of the house. Core is everything to do with the data center, and cloud obviously is people who are there on the cloud. So we've been around for some time, I think 21 odd years. We're about 200 odd people, and we've really had the privilege to serve about 2,000 odd customers, right? And to best understand us, we are broader than just the Microsoft piece that you saw today. We understand that customers are going through one or more of these transformations, right? Whether it's workforce transformation, big buzzword by the way today, or everything to do with the PC, laptops, endpoints, work from home solutions, that's on the workforce side of the house. IT transformation over here is all about everything to do inside the data center. So moving into a software-defined data center, which is software-defined compute, software-defined storage, software-defined network. Now there's software-defined WAN, and then transforming backups, right? A lot of people on tapes right now struggling. They want to move to a purposeful backup appliances. So a lot of transformation in the backup space, and obviously setting up some amount of, I would say, private clouds for organization. While that's a nice technical word, still, our Indian customers are taking a little time to adopt to it. But that's basically saying programmable infrastructure, so that my developers can go and just get whatever they want without talking to IT, right? Security, never-ending story, right? So everything to do with perimeter, endpoint, network, and application. It's been through our portfolio of solutions from VMware, from Microsoft, which we just spoke to you now, as well as from our relationship with Fortinet, right? And recently, 9 months ago, is when we signed up with Automation Anywhere for customers who were trying to bring in robotic process automation to a lot of their processes, right? So that's a team that we have, and we can only do these solutions on the shoulders of these great partners that we have there. And of course, underpinned by our complete services division, because any solution that New Wave takes on over the last 20 years, it's been our philosophy that we take something on, we are able to design it, pre-sale it, sell it, and also roll out and support it thereafter, right? So all of this good stuff and services are available from our services division. So with that, I'm want to thank you for being with us today. That brings us to the end of our session. Kiran is going to send out a feedback form to you. Very specifically, there are just simple 3 questions we are asking, especially if you want us to do the security workshop way before your renewals. Remember, it just takes for us to a 7-day period to get this going for you. Please just tick in, and I will get the team to contact you post. Nothing much you have to do from your side at all, right? And this is not some third-party tools we're using. This is Microsoft's own security check tool, which will run on your tenant, and then involve us into your renewals, because I think this is a great time to sort of rechange the way and bring, I would say, the next level of collaboration in a sense, which is secure collaboration. How much of that security piece you want to bring in right now? Well, it's going to differ from each customer to customer, right? So once again, I think on behalf of Supratim and myself, I want to thank you. You could have been anywhere from 3 to 4, but you chose to be with us. I know there's a lot of webinar fatigue going on with customers. I apologize. But at least from a New Wave perspective, we are trying to bring in pieces of information for not more than 45 to 50 minutes, which we feel are going to be useful to you, right? So I hope you've taken that. I hope this was very informative. And over to you, back to you, Kiran. I think we have probably 5 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ajit sir, for the session. And now I would like to open a Q&A session. If any customers have any queries regarding whatever we spoke today, we are open to take your questions and answer your queries. So yeah, if anyone has queries, please unmute yourself and post your questions to our speakers. So meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chat a link to take a feedback on today's webinar topic. You can still click on that link and just keep the link open in another browser, and right after we log off, we can give you feedback on this topic. Right, so I think looks like there's no questions, Jitcha. So okay, customers, I think I've also dropped, as I said, there's a feedback link that I've dropped in a chat box there. You can use that link to give a feedback survey. Yes, Ajit sir, you want to say something?
No, I just want to say that we'll anyway get the teams to speak to you one-on-one, at the end of this webinar, and they'll just give you a quick call. Just share your feedback, and you want them to engage further. Even in if you may not want the workshop, but you want some relook at the renewals that you're doing, believe me, they have use cases in mind. Some of them could be useful to you. And with the renewal that you're doing, we can figure out whether, what needs to be added to bring you that use case or make that use case live for you, right? So I think just have a chat with our team with no commitments to buy, but just have a chat. Yeah, back to you, Kiran. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adit sir. I think we are now at the end of the session. So thank you each one of you who have joined us here for this afternoon and make this webinar a successful one. Meanwhile, you're gonna receive a thank you email from me where you can actually again recap the session. You will have a link to recap the session again if you wanna forward it to some of your colleagues and all. And there'll be also a link to take a feedback in that email too. You can still click on that link and give your feedback on today's webinar topic. Thank you so much for joining us and have a nice day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.